Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Yanni, and today you are going to watch me read one-star reviews of my favorite books. I've seen this tag a lot. I think it's hilarious, and I think it'll be really interesting because I refuse to read one-star reviews of books that I love. I don't read any reviews of books that I love, even the good ones. I just like to have my own opinion and just sit in that opinion just because I feel like sometimes people can bring up valid points. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to be reading reviews off of my iPad. And I'm going to just be going through Goodreads, and I'm going to be choosing. It was really hard actually to choose which books I'm going to choose, but just I guess ones that I can't stop thinking about. And the first one that I'm going to be reading one-star reviews of is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Okay, so I have it right here, Cleopatra and Frankenstein. If you don't know, Cleopatra and Frankenstein is about a young woman named Cleo and an older gentleman named Frank who have a spontaneous marriage, and we're basically following that marriage and the dissolvement of it. And I personally really loved it. I think it taught me a lot of valuable lessons as far as to what extent is love enough? I think that was a topic of conversation that I really appreciated getting to dive into. It's not for everybody. I had my best friend read it. She didn't really like it. So I'm going in knowing a lot of people probably already don't like this book, but it's one of my favorites that I've read. So let's go ahead and let's filter. Let's filter by the one-star reviews. Okay, first one-star review. Everyone is lying about this book. I want to know what you've heard, because I would never go into this book and I would never recommend it to somebody as a happy story by by any means. It's not sad. It's not like A Little Life Sad, but you go into it knowing it's a little toxic. The marriage itself is kind of toxic. The people in the story are kind of toxic. So the story is kind of toxic. So I wonder if this person knew that going into it or not. But no, maybe people are lying. It depends on what they're saying. I'm not lying to you when I say it's a good book, and it's mostly, I would say, an exploration of what's required for a marriage and to what extent is love enough, like I said earlier. Okay, I'm trying to find the ones that I can read that aren't like paragraphs because people wrote essays about why they don't like this book. Deleted my old review because I was senselessly ranty, but I still do think this felt painfully self-indulgent, more so than the works of Sally Rooney, of which this book has been exhaustingly compared to. Though I love it, I can admit that this type of literary genre or niche does tend to not have the substance you'd expect an overtly hyped book to have and often appears juvenile. A lot to unpack there. I've never read Sally Rooney. I have seen that comparison a lot. Is it self-indulgent? Yes. I will give it to this reviewer that it can be self-indulgent for sure. It doesn't ruin it for me. I could understand it ruining it for somebody else, but that kind of just goes to what I was saying when I was prefacing this, that the book is kind of toxic. So maybe that's just part of it. But fair critique. I'll give it to them. Okay, another review. This person wrote, okay, it was a struggle to finish this book. It's about two reckless people getting together and falling apart, and as cliched as that premise is, the writing is much worse. The writing style isn't obviously immediately bad, so you fall into an illusion of it being better than average. Dang. I loved the writing. I loved the writing. That, it's a book that I heavily annotated. Now, I didn't love everything, but I do think that the author did a really good job, actually, in not being too, flowery with the writing, but still being literary. And I think a lot of feelings were illustrated well. And I think there's some scenes and moments within the book that were written very visually great, very showy, not telling. So I definitely have to disagree that the writing is bad. Is the premise cliche? Sure, life is cliche. No one has a unique experience, but heavily disagree on the writing being. Okay, another one-star review. Absolute time capsule to a stupider era, namely the early 2000s. Everything about this is widely dated, from the instances that most cool, hip, young artists are hanging out in Manhattan and don't go over the bridge, to the brazen and incurious ignorance in the writing of every non-white character or gay character, to the straight-up manic pixie dream girl flavor of quirk. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I'm so bad about the 2000s. Why is it stupider era? Genuine question for those of you who are watching that remember that time. It is a little bit. The story is a little bit cliche, and it feels almost like watching an episode of Gossip Girl where the characters are in the Upper East Side. It is kind of like that, and I could understand feeling like the characters lack depth because of that, but I still think it's a little bit intense. The ignorance in the writing of every non-white character, I would agree with that. That is actually one of the critiques that I had with reading the book. As I was reading it, there was a character within it that is biracial. And when we're in the perspective of this biracial person talking about people who are white, that was always very weird to me, the way that the character spoke about it, because I'm like, nobody talks like that, but it was written by a white woman. So I wouldn't, and I guess ignorance is the right word, but it's not offensive, and it doesn't take away from the book. And something that I think can get overlooked sometimes is that there's people like that in the world. You might not be like that, but there's people like that. So sometimes when a character feels unrealistic, it's better to think that they're just unfamiliar to you. But I digress. Last review of Cleopatra and Frankenstein. I mean this in the nicest way possible. This is exactly the book you'd expect from someone named Coco. Okay, I'm gonna like that one. That's so funny and that's so true, and I don't necessarily associate it with a one-star review, but I found that hilarious. So okay. Well, that I think we're ready to move on to the next book. So the next book that we're going to be reading one-star reviews of is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. This is one of the best books that I think I've ever read. And it's a very different genre for me. I would say it's more speculative fiction. It's definitely literary fiction, but there's a big element of speculative in it. And it's about some society. It's about a society in which we're not really sure of the time and place, where a bunch of women are held underground under a cave, and they're guarded by men. And that's all you need to know going in. Outside of that, you follow the protagonist, who's a young girl in this environment with these grown women and these men who are guards, and not having any understanding or memory of the world outside of this situation that she's in. It's a very, very good story, guys. I really recommend it. Regardless of whatever it is these reviews are gonna say. So let's just go ahead and start. Filter by one-star reviews. There's not many. So okay, first, the internet's full of comedians. Okay, this person wrote, "Wish I was I who had never read this book." Wow. Honey, I'm gonna like it. Even though these are one-star reviews, it's funny. No, it's a great book. I really think people should read it. I recommend it to anybody who's really into reading, like, as a tool for self-improvement, especially fiction for self-improvement and just for thought processes. I definitely recommend it. One of the most depressing books I have ever read. People say it's an examination of womanhood, but I heartily disagree. The women here are based on old and outdated assumptions. No answers are ever given to the main character, which is frustrating. As a piece of nihilism, it works, but that's about it. It is not a happy book. And it's not a happy, it's like not a happy book the way Cleopatra and Frankenstein isn't a happy book, because Cleopatra and Frankenstein isn't a sad book. It's just toxic and it's just having unhappy moments within the book. It's not a book that would make you cry, and this book wouldn't make you cry either, but this book would definitely make you, want to put it down and hug your partner, and it is kind of depressing, but not like and cry depressing. At least I didn't. People do say it's an examination of womanhood. I also disagree with that. That's not really what I got from it. I would say more it's an examination of power and power structure. At least that's how I took it. But that's still better in my opinion. As a piece of nihilism, it works. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. This person wrote, kept waiting for literally anything interesting to happen, and it just did not. That's crazy. Some of the most craziest things happened in this book. It's not an action book, but there are really big, drastic events that happen. So for this reviewer to say that nothing interesting happened is peculiar to me. Didn't read the same book. This person wrote, you could just read the title and mark this book as read, TBH, nothing besides that happens. I'm catching a common trend here where I guess people find it boring or there's a lack of events. I'm really confused by that. I feel like so much happens. You guys have to read the book and figure it out for yourself. Congrats, you have managed to pay. This person wrote, congrats, you have managed to be a pick-me without even meeting any men. That's like a total roast of the main character, and this person is not wrong. I'm gonna let that too. That's so funny. That's so funny. Okay. Despite what these reviews say, I do recommend it. I believe it's more of okay, words. So it is about nothing, but it's about a lot at the same time. And you don't have to read between the lines to figure that out. You just have to think critically on what's happening and think about what is also being said and not said. And it's not that hard. I really don't know how any of these individuals can say that absolutely nothing is happening. I could understand maybe not enough. Like, okay, it's not an action book. There's definitely a lot of nothing that happens, but the nothing happening is something happening, if that makes sense. So, with anything like this, definitely worth reading it for yourself and seeing where you fall on that spectrum. The next book that we are going to be reading 1-star reviews of is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I love Rebecca. It's a book that I read actually last year. I was gonna say this year, and this year has just gone by so fast. No, guys, it was last year. So Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a retelling, reimagining of Jane Eyre in a way, but not really. You don't have to read Jane Eyre at all to appreciate Rebecca. And Rebecca is about a young woman, a nameless woman, so we don't know her name, who marries an older gentleman named Maxwell, and they get married, and he takes her up to his estate, but within that she feels kind of trapped in their marriage and unhappy because she feels like she could never compare to the ghost of his ex-wife, who is Rebecca. So one of my favorite books that I've ever read, one of my favorite classics that I've read. I just loved the writing. I thought the story was really great. And a lot of people agree, more 5-star reviews than anything. So let's just go ahead and start filtering this to 1-star reviews. Okay. I want to read the first review that came up. It's full of so much profanity. But essentially, I hated this boring, pompous, dumb book. What I liked, it has a gorgeous cover and that's it. Everything else sucked. Why did it suck? It was boring. The main character, never in my life have I read about such a dull, naive, idiotic, clueless, worthless, Forrest Gump look-alike, boring, stupid person. Jeez, that's so much. Oh my gosh, she reminded me a lot of my younger self, actually. This reviewer, I hope, has gone to therapy. Oh my gosh, that is a huge review. And it's such a strong start. So the young character, the main character being dull, naive, idiotic, boring. That's all true. That's all true. At least at a surface level, part of the reason that the protagonist comes across as weak, passive, very naive is when she's a significantly younger woman with a much older man. Like, I'm 24, so I think the protagonist is maybe even younger than me, 2021, married to a gentleman who's already been married and, had a very humble life, had a very simple life, and then this man takes her up to his, like, rich estate, and, she doesn't ride horses and pick out china and isn't used to having a staff. And just a very meek and introverted young girl who feels overshadowed by the ghost of someone's ex-lover. I mean, so that's a valid critique, but I do think that it is insulting to the character because although all these things are true, they're true with purpose. But they said rip off Jane Eyre, why don't you? It's a retelling, reimagining of Jane Eyre. It's not ripping off Jane Eyre, it's inspired by. Okay, moving on. This person said 1 star. Wow, this really sucked. One of the most boring books I've ever read. Moving on. I don't think it's boring. I do think that the book could be 100 pages less and be just as good. And I do think that there is a lot of the day-to-day that isn't absolutely necessary for the plot other than making us really understand the woes of the main character. But I could understand someone finding it boring. I didn't find it boring, but worse things have been said. The relief now that it's over. Rebecca was meant to be the quote-unquote classic romance of my 2015 reading challenge. Not only was I horribly slow, but after the whole book, I questioned my own sanity. From this point forward, there are spoilers. Okay, so let's stop right there. It is marketed as a romance. It's not a romance. So I could understand if you went in wanting to read a romance. That could be disappointing. And in the cover, I believe it's actually, it labels itself as a suspenseful romance. That's probably not accurate. So, valid. This person said, this is the worst, most boring classic I have ever read. What a stupid main character. What a stupid plot twist. What a stupid ending. It's just a waste of time. It's not boring. It's not boring to me. And the main character being stupid, the main character is not stupid. She's just naive. She's young. She's insecure, afraid, over her head. And she might be a little bit stupid, but, and by stupid, I mean, like, maybe she's not as smart as the people around her, but she had a lot of heart. She was very humble. She was very kind. She was a young girl being taken advantage of by an older gentleman. That doesn't make her stupid. That makes her groomed. What a stupid ending. If you hate the ending to this, you don't like Jane Eyre either, so put that out there. The main character doesn't even get a name in the book. She's so transparent that she doesn't even get named. I could have loved it because there's beautiful moments, slow, peaceful moments that I love in the classics, but I can't. She's horrible and she ruins the party. I understand not liking the main character. I feel very frustrated with her sometimes because she is so meek and meeker and lacks so much will and resolve, but I don't think she's horrible. She's young, she's naive, she has her flaws, but, hero's journey, she overcomes. I wouldn't say she ruins the party. I think her husband ruins the party. And if you read it, you know what I mean by that. So, yeah. Opposite of a page turner, probably the least exciting and interesting. Okay, I'm done. Let's move on to the next book. I have really lost the sunlight, guys. I'm so sorry. I'll do better next time, but let's just go ahead and keep this moving. So the last book that I'm going to be reading 1-star reviews of is of Love and Other Demons by Gabriel García Márquez. This was my first book by him and I really loved it. It's about a young 12-year-old girl in a very old time. I don't know what time, 18th century South American. She's bitten by a dog with rabies, so she develops rabies, but because of the time period that this was in and the cultural beliefs and the spiritual beliefs, they believed she was possessed. So she's brought to a covenant where she's looked after by this priest, and the priest feels that he falls in love with her. And something notable about this young girl is that she has very like luscious hair, it's just a trademark. So that's Of Love and Other Demons. Let's go ahead and filter these reviews. 1 star. Easily the worst book I have read so far this year. Gabriel García Márquez has a fascination with old virgin men pedophiles who wind up with prepubescent girls in love with them. Valid critique, my friend, valid critique. I have nothing to say there. Not one of the worst books I've ever read, but there is that, Noble and kind priest saves 14-year-old girl through his love, just so predatory. There's literally no redeeming this book. It is predatory, but I don't feel that at any point it's meant to be anything different. So if you hear a lot of noises too, my cat is just like doing something back there. I don't even know. This book just wasn't for me. Yes, the writing was beautiful, but more often than not, it was so cumbersome to get through in the plot. Why is this book so highly praised? It is so beautifully written. And I think that's where I have a lot of leniency. I can put up with a lot if it's well written. And I think maybe that's one of those things that is personal to me. I can overlook a predatory plot if it's a well-written predatory plot. And if it's not romanticizing it, which I don't feel like this book is, it's more a thing than it is a thing that is talked about. Yes. Needless plot and complex characters for the sake of literary aesthetic complexity. This author was not my favorite. While reading his books, I often found myself asking why? Why this? Why like this? I've never read his books, and I've read a couple of his books now and thought that he was trying to be aesthetic. I think his books are aesthetic, It's okay that he's not your favorite. Not every author is for every person. As for asking why this, why that, guess we're moving on, right? Finished it on Friday, and for me, it's just a big no. At least this person finished it, so... Can you relax? I'm telling you, my cat is going crazy. Okay, guys. That is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching till the end. I hope you got a little bit of a laugh out of that, just like I did. And I do apologize again for the light. Lesson learned, start filming earlier in the day. But please leave a comment. Please subscribe. Please stay tuned. I post videos every single week. And I hope to see you guys. Bye. Guys, didn't think you were gonna go the whole video without seeing these. Hi.